Hi guys, how you going? My question is directed at the Office of Endangered Species. Has your department done an assessment on the impact of renewables on endangered species? Threatened.
So, Senator, I think the short answer is we will have for individual projects that have come forward for approval through such as wind farms, etc. But then also, I think Ms. Kennedy may also have something to add from the overall biodiversity perspective.
Sandra Kennedy, Division Head for Biodiversity Division. The Office of the Threatened Species Commissioner is in my division. So, as Mr. Knudsen has just said, individual conservation plans that we prepare for species are taking into account relevant threats to species, including, where relevant, impacts of offshore wind and other things like that.
So in terms of a national perspective, I mean, I know you can do it project by project. Are you also doing a consolidated national perspective on, say, how many koalas could be wiped out, how many hairy-nosed wombats, wedge-tailed eagles, the impact on marine life from offshore wind turbines? Have you got a national perspective on that as well, where you do an annual national report on how many endangered species are being killed as these things are being built?
Senator Rennick, as I said to you earlier this morning, maybe it was early this afternoon, from a conservation perspective, the government, the way the law is administered and the way the policy settings are administered, it's not so much the particular nature of the project as all projects are evaluated where they trigger national environmental the national environmental laws for their impact on the environment. Otherwise, those matters are dealt with by state approval bodies.
That's all very good, but net zero is a federal government policy, and
it's actually coalition policy as well.
Well, not all of us agree with it. Some of us didn't get a say, but it's still It's still a federal government, whether you like it or not, regardless of where it came from. Yeah. It's a federal government policy of both governments, right? Mm. So I think that we are entitled, because we're doing this to save the environment, the Australian people have a right to know the impact on endangered species or threatened species of building this rapid industrialisation of renewables across the landscape on endangered and threatened species. Now, is the federal government going to do a consolidated, top-down, national approach? Because I can assure you a hairy-nosed wombat doesn't look at himself as being a Queenslander or from New South Wales. We're all Australians here. I want to know that all our species are protected from renewables. Is that being monitored or not?
So, Senator, can I just pick that up, because it's a conversation you and I had this morning.
Sorry,
so
Senator Cox, I mean, you're in the Greens. You should be caring about the environment.
We're not going to have an argument across the table.
Well, could you ask her to be quiet,
Senator
please,
Rennick, you've asked the question. Senator Cox, thank you very much. Mr Fredericks, please go ahead, hopefully in silence.
So, Senator, in this instance, on this particular issue, the approach that you're raising is effectively done threatened species by threatened species. I'll have Ms Kennedy explain more to you. But when a conservation plan or recovery plan is created for a species in a particular place or broader, then that is the point in time where the analysis that you're describing, i.e. what is the impact of all manner of threat to that species, is taken into account. So it is done species by species. It is not done in a kind of national aggregate way.
Thanks, Secretary. I appreciate that. So I'll leave this. This will be my last question. Thanks, Chair.
Yep.
Do you do species by species on a national basis? So can we say, for example, koalas? Is there a report, an annual report that says, in regards to koalas, they occupy this much habitat, this percentage of this much habitat will be eroded or is threatened by the construction of renewables? Likewise for, say, wedge-tailed eagles. I mean, that's one that's quite controversial at the moment, because we're seeing them on the ground under wind turbines. Can we get, say, for example, a report on wedge-tailed eagles and the impact that wind farms are having on wedge-tailed eagles across the country?
So, Senator, if I may, one of the things that is part of the reforms that we're prosecuting is the establishment of Environment Information Australia. In that, that will constitute an entity that will report on the state of the environment on a rolling basis each 5 years, and then also updates as need be. That will report on not only how the populations are going, but also trend analysis, so you'll be able to see which way different species are going. The other piece that you complement that with then is the recovery strategies, which will indicate what the key threats are to those species. So, for example, you talked about wedge-tailed eagles. That is a species, because of the way that it flies, that we're very concerned with individual project assessment, where it's core habitat for those species, and working with proponents on how to mitigate the effects on them. Okay. So sometimes it boils down to an individual project in a wind farm, but we want to be sure that we're reporting nationally on the overall trends for our species, and we're embedding that in the reforms.
Yeah, if we could do that annually rather than 5 years, that'd be better, but thank you.
Authorised G. Rennick, LNP Chermside.